If you asked me a month ago to describe my life, I would have told you I was one of the lucky ones. Seriously, you hear all these horror stories about marriages falling apart after the kids leave the nest, but I thought we were bulletproof. I'm 49 now, and my husband, Bao, just turned 50. We've been married for 23 years. Our daughter, Emma, is a junior at NYU, and we just dropped our youngest, Liam, off for his freshman year in Colorado a few months ago. We're officially empty nesters. And honestly, I was so excited for this chapter. Just the two of us again. Let me tell you a little bit about Bao. He's a pediatrician, and he is exactly the kind of guy you'd want taking care of your kids. He's gentle, soft-spoken, and just deeply kind. In the almost 25 years I've known him, I could probably count on one hand the number of times he's raised his voice. He's the guy who remembers his patients' birthdays, the guy who takes the dog out at 6 a.m. without complaining, the guy who will run to the grocery store in his pajamas because I forgot to buy vanilla extract for a recipe. I didn't just love him, I respected the hell out of him. But I need to backtrack a little bit because painting this picture of our perfect life isn't complete without explaining how we started. I grew up in a pretty conservative, blue-collar town in Ohio. My family is tight-knit, very traditional, meat and potatoes American. When I called my parents from college sophomore year to tell them I was bringing my serious boyfriend home for Thanksgiving and told them his name was Bao, let's just say there was a very long, very awkward pause on the line. It sounds terrible to admit now, but my parents were not thrilled. My dad, a stubborn union mechanic, actually sighed and asked me, Sarah, why can't you just find a nice boy from around here? They didn't really know what to do with an Asian guy. It was the late 90s in a small Midwest town. They had their prejudices and their walls up. When Bao first came over, they were polite, but it was that stiff, distant kind of polite. They definitely thought it was just a college phase and kept waiting for us to break up. I remember fighting with my dad about it, crying in my childhood bedroom, telling him, I don't care what you guys think, I love him, and you're going to have to get used to it. But here's the thing about Bao. It is entirely impossible to dislike him. He didn't get offended by their coldness. He didn't push. He just quietly, consistently showed up. If he saw my dad struggling with a busted lawnmower in the driveway, Bao would just roll up his sleeves and hand him the wrench without being asked. When my mom got a terrible case of bronchitis, Bao, who was in med school at the time, sat at her kitchen table for an hour, patiently explaining exactly what her medications did so she wouldn't be anxious. He was just so undeniably, consistently good. And, of course, graduating at the top of his medical school class to become a pediatrician didn't hurt. By the time we actually got married, my parents had completely flipped. They weren't just accepting of him. They were bragging about their son, the doctor, to anyone at the grocery store who would listen. My sister started calling him for life advice before they'd even call me. He became the golden boy of my family. But the moment that really cemented him into our bloodline was when my dad got sick. It was pancreatic cancer, about 10 years into our marriage. It was fast, and it was incredibly ugly. I was an absolute wreck. I couldn't function. But Bao stepped up in a way I will never, ever forget. He practically moved into the hospice room with us. He translated the terrifying medical jargon from the oncologist into plain English for my mom. When the nurses were short-staffed, he was the one who helped bathe my dad. He held my family together when we were falling apart. I'll never forget the night before my dad passed away. The room was dark, just the glow of the monitors. I was dozing in the uncomfortable recliner in the corner, but I woke up to the sound of murmuring. My dad was so frail at that point he could barely lift his head, but he had reached out and grabbed Bao's hand. I just stayed still and listened. My dad looked Bao right in the eye, his breathing ragged, and croaked out, "You take care of my little girl, Bao. You protect her. You're a good man. You're the best thing that ever happened to her." And Bao gripped my dad's hand with both of his. He had tears streaming down his face. He nodded and choked out, "I promise, Dad. I promise I'll always take care of her." My dad died the next morning, completely at peace, believing that his daughter was in the safest, most loving hands in the world. So, my family worshipped him. But his family, that was a completely different battlefield. When we first started dating in college, it wasn't exactly a walk in the park. I'm a white girl from Ohio, and Bao is the only son of very traditional Vietnamese immigrants. When he first brought me home, I thought his mother was going to have a heart attack, right there in the living room. She barely looked at me. I didn't speak a word of Vietnamese. I didn't know the etiquette, and I clearly wasn't the nice, traditional Vietnamese doctor's wife she had planned for her son. But I loved him so much that I put the work in. I really did. I spent years trying to earn his family's approval. I learned how to cook pho from scratch, and I mean simmering the beef bones for 12 hours straight. I learned how to properly greet the elders at Lunar New Year, how to navigate the massive family gatherings, and how to smile politely when his aunts criticized my weight or my parenting. Eventually, his mom softened up. Once the kids were born, I was officially part of the family. We built a really beautiful life together, blending our cultures. And then there's Kevin. You can't really talk about my marriage without talking about Kevin. He's Bao's best friend. They've known each other since middle school when Bao's family first moved to our town. Kevin is a graphic designer, single, a little more outgoing and flashy than Bao, but they've always been inseparable. For the last 2 decades, Kevin has basically been a fixture in our house. The kids call him Uncle Kevin. Every Thanksgiving, he's at our table. When Liam had his high school graduation, Kevin was in the front row cheering louder than anyone. Almost every Friday night, the two of them would go grab beers or play pool, just catching up. I never minded it. Honestly, I thought it was great. Guys need their friends, right? Plus, Kevin was always so sweet to me. Whenever I hosted a dinner party, he was the first one in the kitchen helping me dry the dishes or pouring me a glass of wine when I looked stressed out. I considered him one of my closest friends, too. I completely trusted him. I completely trusted my husband. When Emma and Liam finally moved out, the house got really quiet. It's a weird transition, going from a chaotic house full of teenagers back to just being a couple. But Bao was so sweet about it. He bought me flowers the day Liam left for college. He hugged me in the kitchen and said, "We did a good job, Sarah. Now it's our turn." It all started on a random Thursday night in October. Bao had texted me earlier that afternoon saying he and Kevin were going to grab dinner and a few drinks after his shift at the clinic. Totally normal. I told him to have fun, made myself a salad, and binge-watched some true crime show. He didn't get home until almost 1 a.m. Bao was not a late-night guy, and he definitely isn't a heavy drinker. He usually nurses one IPA for 3 hours. But when he walked through the bedroom door that night, he was stumbling. He smelled heavily of whiskey and whatever cologne Kevin wears. He mumbled something about losing track of time, practically face planted onto the mattress and passed out instantly. He didn't even take off his work slacks. I sighed. You know, just doing the typical wife routine. I pulled his shoes off, threw a blanket over him, and picked up his phone, which had slipped out of his pocket onto the rug. I was just going to plug it into the charger on his nightstand, so his alarm would go off in the morning. Right as I plugged the cable in, the screen lit up. A text message notification popped up. It was from Kevin. It read, "You did so good tonight, heart emoji." Sleep tight. I just stood there staring at the screen. My brain literally stopped working for a second. You did so good tonight. And a heart? Guys, even best friends don't text each other like that unless it's some heavy, sarcastic inside joke. But my gut, you know that feeling when the bottom just drops out of your stomach? Women's intuition is a real, terrifying thing. Every alarm bell in my body started ringing at once. My hands were shaking, but I swiped up on the screen. I know his passcode. We've used the same ones for years. It was Emma's birth year. The phone unlocked. I opened his messages and tapped on Kevin's name. The thread was empty. There were no messages from that night. The last text in their history was from 3 days ago, a boring link about a new sushi place opening downtown. He had deleted the conversation. He deleted it before he walked into the house. Why would you delete the thread if it was just an innocent joke? You wouldn't. I sat down on the edge of the bed. I started swiping through the pages on his home screen. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. I swiped past his medical apps, his banking apps, his podcasts, and then, buried on the very last page inside a folder labeled Utilities, I saw it. It was a calculator app, but it wasn't the standard Apple one. The icon was just slightly off, a darker gray, different font. I tapped it. It didn't open to a keypad for math. A blank screen popped up with a flashing cursor and the words, "Enter 4-digit PIN." My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. I tried our anniversary. Incorrect. I tried his mom's birthday. Incorrect. I tried Liam's birthday. Incorrect. A little red warning flashed. Too many attempts. Locked for 30 minutes. I couldn't breathe. I carefully set the phone back on the nightstand, exactly how I found it, face down. I crawled into bed next to him. He was snoring softly, completely dead to the world, smelling like alcohol and somebody else's cologne. I didn't sleep a single wink that night. I just laid there, staring at the shadows on the ceiling, running through every possible scenario in my head. I was practically gaslighting myself. Maybe Kevin sent it to the wrong person. Maybe they were playing a prank. Maybe I'm just a crazy, paranoid menopausal woman looking for drama where there isn't any. But I couldn't explain away the deleted text. I couldn't explain the hidden app. When the sun finally started coming up around 6:30, I felt physically sick, nauseous, exhausted. I was dreading him waking up because I didn't know how to act. I expected him to look guilty or defensive or at least hungover and awkward. But at 7 a.m., his alarm went off. He groaned, stretched, rubbed his eyes, and rolled over to look at me. "Morning, honey," he said, his voice raspy. He smiled this warm, sleepy smile. "Sorry I came in so late. Kevin," and I just got to talking and totally lost track of time. My head is killing me. He was so normal. He got out of bed, took a quick shower, and went downstairs. By the time I forced myself to get out of bed and walk into the kitchen, The whole downstairs smelled amazing. He was making buona, that Vietnamese sizzling steak and eggs dish. It takes effort. He had the little cast iron cow-shaped skillets out. The steak was sizzling with onions and pâté. The sunny side up eggs were bubbling, and there was a fresh baguette warming in the oven. It's my absolute favorite breakfast, the one he usually only makes for my birthday or special weekend mornings. Thought we could use a good breakfast, he said, sliding a skillet onto a wooden board and placing it in front of me at the island. He poured me a cup of black coffee, exactly how I like it. Then he leaned over and kissed me on the forehead. "You look a little tired, babe," he said, looking at me with genuine concern in his eyes. "Did I wake you up when I came in?" I sat there, looking at this beautiful, thoughtful breakfast prepared by my husband of 23 years. I looked into his kind, dark eyes. The cognitive dissonance was so intense I felt like I was losing my mind. The man standing in front of me, making sure my coffee was hot, couldn't possibly be hiding some dark, twisted double life. It didn't make any sense. I forced the corners of my mouth up. No, I lied, my voice sounding hollow to my own ears. Just didn't sleep well. Bad dreams, I guess. He patted my shoulder sympathetically. "Eat up. It'll make you feel better." We sat there eating our buona, talking about whether we should call Liam later to see how his midterms were going. We played our parts perfectly, but every time I took a bite, it felt like ash in my mouth, because I knew deep down that the dream wasn't the nightmare. The nightmare was sitting right across the table from me. I spent the next 4 days living in a state of low grade, suffocating panic. It is a terrifying thing to realize you are actively investigating the person you share a bed with. Every time Bao's phone buzzed, my eyes darted to his pocket. Every time he mentioned Kevin's name, which was completely normal for him to do, my heart would do this horrible little stutter step. But on the outside, I was perfectly pleasant. I did the laundry, I went to my Pilates class. I asked him how his day was. It was exhausting. Then, on Tuesday, the opportunity finally came. Val texted me around 4 p.m. Flu season is hitting the clinic hard today. Dr. Miller called out sick, so I have to cover his evening shift. Going to be late, babe. Don't wait up. Normally, I would have replied with a frowny face and told him I'd save him a plate of dinner. This time, my hands were actually shaking as I typed back. "Okay, no problem. Love you." He didn't get home until almost 11:30 p.m. I was sitting in the living room in the dark, pretending to read a book on my Kindle. When he walked in, he looked genuinely dead on his feet. He had those dark circles under his eyes that he gets when he's been looking at patient charts for 12 hours straight. He kissed the top of my head, took a quick, hot shower, and collapsed into bed. I waited 20 minutes. I laid there listening to his breathing until it deepened into that steady, heavy rhythm of deep sleep. I slid out from under the duvet, gently picked his phone off the nightstand, and tiptoed into the master bathroom. I shut the door silently until it clicked. I didn't turn on the main overhead lights, just the dim little vanity light over the sink. I sat down on the edge of the bathtub, the cold porcelain seeping through my sweatpants. I unlocked his phone, Emma's birth year. I swiped over to the last page. I opened the utilities folder. I tapped the gray calculator app. Enter 4-digit PIN. I had spent the last 4 days racking my brain for what those 4 numbers could be. If this app was hiding what I thought it was hiding, the code had to be connected to Kevin. I thought about it. Kevin's birthday. I literally threw a surprise 40th birthday dinner for Kevin at our house a few years ago. I was the one who ordered the cake. August 12th. My thumb hovered over the screen. I was almost praying for it to be wrong. I wanted the screen to flash red and lock me out again so I could go back to bed and pretend I was just being crazy. I tapped the numbers 0 to 8, 1 to 2. The screen didn't flash red. Instead, the keypad dissolved. The screen went black for a split second, and then a bright grid of photo albums populated the screen. The silence in that bathroom was deafening. All I could hear was the hum of the exhaust fan and my own shallow breathing. I tapped the first album, titled 2023. I don't know what I expected. Maybe some flirty text screenshots? Maybe a picture of Kevin at a bar looking too friendly? But the very first thumbnail I clicked opened into a full screen, high definition photo that made all the air leave my lungs. It was Bao and Kevin. They were in a hotel bed. The white sheets were tangled around them. Bao was sleeping, his head resting on Kevin's bare chest. Kevin had taken the selfie, looking down at the camera with this soft, incredibly intimate smile. I felt a wave of nausea hit me so hard I actually had to grip the edge of the sink so I wouldn't throw up. My finger was trembling, but I swiped to the next picture. And the next. And the next. There were hundreds of them. There were photos of them kissing in the front seat of Bao's car. There were highly explicit, sexual photos that I had to quickly scroll past because they made my eyes burn. But honestly, it wasn't the graphic stuff that broke me. It was the other things. It was a video of them in a kitchen I didn't recognize, cooking dinner together. Kevin was chopping vegetables, and Bao came up from behind, wrapped his arms around Kevin's waist, and buried his face in his neck. It was a photo of Bao holding Kevin's hand across the table at some dimly lit restaurant. It was the way Bao looked at him in these pictures. It was this look of pure, unguarded, desperate adoration. It was a look he had never, not once in 23 years, given me. I looked at the timestamps. They went back years. I opened another folder. It was labeled Seattle Med Conference. Oh my God, he went to a pediatric conference in Seattle last spring. He told me he was going alone. But looking at these photos, Kevin was there the whole time. They had rented a beautiful Airbnb overlooking the water. It was a romantic getaway. My brain started aggressively connecting dots I didn't even know were on the same puzzle board. And then came the wave of absolute, crushing humiliation. Because as I sat there staring at those photos, I realized people had tried to tell me. My own friends had noticed, and I had defended him like a complete idiot. I remembered this 4th of July barbecue we hosted about 5 years ago. My best friend, Rachel, was sitting with me on the patio while Bao and Kevin were over by the grill. I remember looking over and seeing Kevin casually reach out and wipe a smudge of barbecue sauce off the corner of Bao's mouth with his thumb. Bao didn't pull away. He just leaned into the touch and smiled this soft, private smile. Rachel had lowered her sunglasses, looked at me, and muttered, "I'm just gonna say it, Sarah. Their whole vibe is intense. Do they ever, give each other personal space?" I had actually rolled my eyes at her. I laughed it off. "Oh, come on, Ratch. It's just a bromance. They've known each other forever." But it wasn't just Rachel. A couple of years later, I was out for drinks with some girlfriends from my book club. I was venting, just lighthearted complaining about how Bao completely bailed on our Friday date night. because Kevin had a plumbing emergency at his apartment and needed Bao to come help him fix it. My friend Jen, who never filters anything after 2 margaritas, put her glass down and looked me dead in the eye. "Sarah, I love you," Jen had said, "but if my husband dropped our date night to go play Mario and Luigi with his single best friend on a Friday night, I'd be checking his phone. I'm sorry, but Kevin acts more like the spouse than you do. Are you absolutely sure they're just buddies?" I remember getting so incredibly angry at Jen. My face flushed hot. I actually got defensive. I gave this whole smug, self-righteous speech right there at the table. I told them they were being narrow-minded. I went on a tangent about toxic masculinity and how beautiful it was that Bao wasn't afraid to be emotionally intimate and physically affectionate with his male best friend. I told them they were just jealous because their husbands couldn't even text their friends back, let alone show genuine affection. I literally argued with my best friends to protect my husband's affair. I was the enlightened, progressive wife defending her sensitive husband. Looking back at it now, sitting on the cold bathroom towel with the undeniable proof glowing in my hands, I felt like the biggest clown on the planet. Jen wasn't narrow-minded. Rachel wasn't being dramatic. They were looking at my life from the outside, without the rose-colored glasses I had superglued to my own face. Every time Bao chose Kevin over me, I made an excuse for it. "Oh, Kevin is single, he's just lonely." "Oh, Bao works so hard at the clinic, he needs his guy time to decompress." "Oh, Vietnamese culture is just different. Friends are basically family." I gaslit myself for years. I built the walls of my own prison and painted them pretty colors so I wouldn't have to look at the bars. And the worst part? Bao knew I was doing it. He watched me rationalize his neglect. He watched me defend his best friend to anyone who questioned it. He let me play the fool, knowing damn well that every time I defended his character, I was just handing him a free pass to sleep with the man he actually loved. I slid off the edge of the bathtub and sank onto the cold tile floor. I pulled my knees up to my chest and wrapped my arms around them, trying to hold myself together because I physically felt like I was splitting open. I couldn't scream. I couldn't yell. The man who had orchestrated this entire massive, sprawling lie was sleeping peacefully 20 feet away from me. I just sat there in the dim light, pressing the back of my hand against my mouth to muffle my own sobs. Tears were streaming down my face, hot and fast, dropping onto my sweatpants. I cried for the 22-year-old girl who tried so hard to learn how to cook Vietnamese food for her boyfriend's strict mother. I cried for the life I thought I had built. I wasn't a partner. I wasn't his soulmate. I was a prop. I was a beard. I was the alibi he used to buy himself a normal, respectable life while he gave his heart to somebody else. I sat on that bathroom floor for 3 hours. I watched the battery on his phone drain down to 10%, the screen finally going black, locking the vault back up. I didn't move until the sky outside the frosted bathroom window started turning a dull, bruised purple. Morning was coming, and I had to go out there and face the stranger in my bed. By 7 a.m., the sun was fully up, pouring bright, cheerful light through the kitchen windows. It felt like a sick joke. I was sitting on one of the bar stools at the kitchen island. I hadn't showered. I was still in the sweatpants I wore on the bathroom floor. I had made a pot of coffee 2 hours ago, poured a mug, and just let it sit there until a thin film formed over the top. Right in the center of the white quartz countertop, I had placed his phone. I heard the floorboards creak upstairs. The shower ran for exactly 8 minutes, just like it always did. The closet door opened and closed. Heavy footsteps came down the stairs. "Hey," Val's voice called out from the hallway, sounding groggy and completely normal. "Why didn't you wake me up?" My alarm didn't go off. He walked into the kitchen wearing a crisp blue button-down shirt, rolling up his sleeves. He stopped when he saw me. He took in my face, my swollen red eyes, my messy hair, my posture. "Sarah, honey, what's wrong? Are you sick?" He took a step toward me, reaching his hand out. I didn't move. I just looked down at the counter. 0, 8, 1, 2. Val froze. His hand dropped back to his side. "What?" "August 12th, I said, my voice completely flat, raspy from crying all night. "Kevin's birthday. That's the pin." I watched the color completely drain from his face. It was instant. He looked like all the blood had just rushed out of his body. He stared at the phone sitting on the counter, and then he looked back at me. I could see the panic flooding his eyes, the rapid calculation happening in his brain as he tried to figure out a lie, an excuse, a way out. But there was no way out. "Sarah, he started, his voice cracking. I looked at everything, Val. Everything. I finally looked him dead in the eye. "So I'm going to ask you one question, and you are going to give me the dignity of telling the truth for the first time in 23 years. Are you gay?" He just stood there. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. He looked terrified. "Say it," I yelled. It wasn't a movie scream. It was this ugly, guttural sound that tore out of my throat. "Look me in the face and say it." Bao slumped forward, gripping the back of the dining chair opposite me. He squeezed his eyes shut, and a tear rolled down his cheek. He nodded. "Yes," he whispered. "I am," hearing him actually say it out loud. It was like a physical blow. Knowing it is one thing, but hearing the confession makes it permanent. "Why?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why me? Why did you marry me? We had 2 children together, Bao. You let me build my entire life around you. Why would you do that to me?" He pulled the chair out and sat down heavily, burying his face in his hands. When he looked up, he was sobbing. "I was so scared, Sarah. You don't understand what it was like. You didn't grow up in my house." "Don't do that," I snapped. "Do not blame this on your culture." "It's the truth," he cried, his voice desperate. "When I was in college, I tried to hint at it to my parents once. Just hinted. My mother went into hysterics. She told me she would drink bleach if her only son brought shame to the family. She demanded grandchildren. Sarah. She demanded a normal life." He reached across the counter, trying to touch my hand, but I flinched backward like he was on fire. "And then I met you," he continued, wiping his face. "You were so sweet and funny, and you wanted a family so badly. You were this perfect, good girl. I knew my parents would eventually accept you because you were safe. You were respectable. And I loved you. I really did love you, Sarah. I still do. Just not the way you wanted me to. I thought I could just push it down. I thought if I played the part well enough, I'd eventually believe it. So you used me as a shield," I said, the reality of it settling over me like a heavy, suffocating blanket. "I was your beard. I was your alibi. It wasn't like that. We have a beautiful family. We raised Emma and Liam. We have a good life. And it's not like I had an affair with another woman, Sarah. It's different." I stared at him. "What the hell does that mean?" "It means you are my wife," he said earnestly, like he genuinely believed he was making sense. You are my family, men sleeping with men. For me, it was just a physical release. It's just who I am. I couldn't change it. It wasn't real cheating. I saw the video of you two cooking dinner together, I said quietly, cutting through his pathetic excuses. I saw the way you looked at him on that balcony in Seattle. Don't you dare tell me that was just a physical release. You gave him the romance. You gave him your heart. You just gave me the administrative duties of your life. Bao put his head down on the counter and wept. I looked at him, and suddenly a new, horrifying realization hit me. I thought about the timing. I thought about how careless he had been lately, coming home drunk, leaving notifications on his phone. He had never been this sloppy before. Why now? I asked, my voice dropping to a whisper. You hid this perfectly for over 2 decades. Why are you suddenly getting so brave? Why are you letting the mask slip now? Bao slowly lifted his head. His eyes met mine, and for a split second, the guilt was replaced by this strange, defensive defiance. Because my mother passed away last spring, he said quietly. I stopped breathing. My dad is gone. My mom is gone. Bao continued, his voice gaining a little bit of strength. I don't have to pretend for them anymore. Sarah, I spent my entire life suffocating so they could brag to their friends at the temple. I did my duty. I gave them the perfect doctor son. I gave them a respectable daughter-in-law. I gave them a grandson to carry on the family name. I played the part until the very day my mother died. They passed away proud of me. I fulfilled my obligations. He leaned forward, looking at me with this sickeningly earnest expression. But I'm 50 years old now. My parents are gone. The kids are in college. Don't I get a turn? Don't I deserve to be happy? I did everything right. Now, I just want to live the rest of my life as who I really am. I want to be with him. We can have an arrangement, Sarah. We don't have to divorce. We can just... I didn't hear the rest of his sentence. The ringing in my ears was too loud. It was the most profoundly insulting, devastating thing a human being could ever say to another person. I wasn't just a cover story. I was a waiting room. He married me, had children with me, and played house with me, all while sitting around waiting for his parents to die so he could finally clock out of his shift as my husband. My entire marriage, my youth, my love, my sacrifices, was just a filial chore he had to check off a list. He had fulfilled his obligations, and now he wanted to retire. The anger burned out of me, leaving nothing but cold, absolute disgust. I stood up from the stool. My legs felt shaky, but I stood tall. You did your duty, I repeated, my voice eerily calm. You gave them a daughter-in-law. Sarah, please. You are the most incredibly selfish person I have ever met, I said. I picked up my cold mug of coffee and poured it down the sink. I'm going to go upstairs and pack a bag. I'm going to stay at my sister's house in Chicago for a few days. By the time I get back, I want you out of this house. Go live your truth with Kevin. What about the kids? Panic was rising in his voice again. I stopped at the doorway leading to the hall and looked back at him one last time. You fulfilled your obligations, Bao. The show is over, and I am done playing my part. And I walked upstairs. It's been almost 3 years since that morning in the kitchen. We got divorced. We did it quickly, quietly, and entirely through mediation. On paper, it was the most boring, amicable split you could imagine. We sat the kids down. Emma was a senior, Liam was a sophomore, and gave them the standard, sanitized speech. We told them that with the house empty, we realized we had just grown apart. We loved each other as friends, but the romantic spark was gone. They cried, of course, but they bought it. Why wouldn't they? It happens to couples our age all the time. Right now, I am standing in my kitchen, loading the dishwasher. It's Thanksgiving night. The house is quiet again, but an hour ago it was full of people. Because we are so amicably divorced, Val still comes over for the holidays when the kids are in town. And, of course, Kevin comes with him. Officially, to my kids and my extended family, Kevin is just renting Bao's spare bedroom because it makes financial sense for two single, middle-aged guys. It's a ridiculous, paper-thin excuse, but people only see what they want to see. I close the dishwasher door and lean against the counter, staring out the window into the dark backyard. You know what the most messed up part of all this is? The part that I can't even admit to my therapist. Sometimes I look at Bao and I just feel an overwhelming, crushing sense of pity for him. Tonight at dinner, I watched him laughing with Kevin across the table. He looks a decade younger. His shoulders aren't tense anymore. He isn't constantly performing. And looking at him, I finally understood the absolute, horrifying tragedy of his life. He spent 50 years trapped in a psychological prison. He was so utterly terrified of his mother, so desperate to be the perfect, dutiful Asian son, that he essentially cut off his own limbs to fit into the box she built for him. He had to wait for the people who gave him life to die, just so he could finally breathe. What kind of hell is that? To know that your parents' love is so conditional that your truth would literally kill them. I pity the terrified 20-year-old boy he was. I really do. My heart breaks for him. But here is the hard truth. Realizing someone is a victim doesn't mean you have to be their martyr. I understand his pain, but I absolutely do not accept what he did to me. Understanding why he used me doesn't give me my 20s back. It doesn't refund the nights I stayed up worrying if I wasn't pretty enough or interesting enough for my husband. He survived his mother's expectations, but he made me the collateral damage. He drowned me so he could use me as a life raft. And I don't think I will ever forgive him for that. So why do I keep his secret? Sometimes I sit in my car in the grocery store parking lot and ask myself, are you the stupidest woman alive? Why am I protecting a man who stole half my life? Why did I just spend 3 days cooking a turkey so my gay ex-husband and his partner could sit at my dining table and play Uncle Kevin with my children? Am I pathetic? Maybe I am. But the truth is, I keep the secret because of Emma and Liam. Right now, my kids look at their dad and they see a hero. They see the guy who taught them how to ride bikes, the guy who worked late at the clinic to pay for their college tuitions. If I blow this wide open, if I tell them that their entire childhood, their parents' marriage, their Thanksgiving dinners, all of it was a stage play, it would break them. It would shatter their foundational trust in people. I am eating this pain, swallowing it down like broken glass, so my kids don't have to bleed. I hear a car engine start out in the street. I walk over to the front window and peek through the blinds. It's Bao's SUV. He's in the driver's seat, and Kevin is in the passenger seat. The streetlights illuminate the inside of the car for a second. I watch Kevin reach over and rest his hand on the back of Bao's neck. A casual, intimate gesture of completely normal love. Bao smiles, puts the car in drive, and they pull away, heading back to the home they share, heading back to their truth. I let the blinds fall shut. The house is completely silent. I don't know how long I can keep doing this. Will I have to sit at Emma's wedding someday, playing the friendly ex-wife, watching them across the room? Will I take this secret to my grave? I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I don't know if there even is a right thing anymore when a lie gets this big. I just know that tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up, make myself a cup of coffee, and keep moving forward in this weird, hollow ghost town of a life I didn't choose. I loved him enough to let him go. I just don't know how to let myself out.